Len McCluskey, are you still opposed under all circumstances to there being another referendum?
No, I'd actually like two public votes, Andrew. Firstly, I'd like a public vote of a general election. That's the only thing that can sort out the mess that we're currently in. We're about to get Boris Johnson foisted upon us with no mandate from the people. And the right thing to do is actually to go back to the people in a general election. The second public vote I'd like is if Labour win that election and they're able to negotiate a deal to take us out of Europe, which I believe will satisfy both the 48% and the 52%, I'd like that to go back to a confirmatory vote to the public. So I'm in favour of two.
But right at the moment, the Labour Party's position is that they're going to have a referendum on any decision taken about Brexit. And that goes against your original policy.
No, not really. I mean, the reality at the moment is there's a lot of debate taking place. After the European elections, I appealed to people to calm down. There seems to be a panic to rush in order to establish a different position from one the Labour Party has had for a couple of years now, which is respecting the 2016 referendum and trying to negotiate a deal that would unite the nation. Now, unfortunately, we've had a Prime Minister, I'm afraid, who has made huge mistakes in dealing with it, and a government that's been incapable of delivering Brexit. And we've had a well-funded Remain lobby that has turned the nation into a toxic situation. So Labour's position is going to be debated and discussed, and we'll see what comes out of it.
And your own position has changed as well, hasn't it, Len McCluskey? You used to say that another referendum would threaten our democratic fabric.
It's changed in the sense, without me repeating it, that I want a referendum called a general election. That's the most important.
You may not get
referendum.
that, of course.
Well, we may get it. The reality is nobody knows what's going to happen. Genuinely, nobody knows what's going to happen when Boris Johnson becomes Prime Minister. And I think all Labour MPs and all our members should be concentrating on that. We have a policy that nothing should be taken off the table, including Labour's alternative. And our alternative is to get a Brexit that respects the results of the referendum, but actually does so with an agreement that the 48% who want to remain will be happy with.
But that happy outcome, from your point of view, depends upon Labour being in power and able to negotiate that before the end of October, which seems extremely unlikely.
No, not before the end of October. The reality is that if there was a general election, then the European Union would obviously wait for the outcome of that election and then would give sufficient time for a proper deal to be negotiated, which would protect jobs and protect investment. And it's only the Labour Party at the moment, Andrew, who's speaking for the whole nation. We're about to get a new leader of the Tory party who is going to disregard half of the nation. We're about to get a new leader of the Liberal Party who's going to disregard the other half of the nation. Jeremy Corbyn in Labour is the only person who's speaking for the whole nation.
The shadow cabinet seems to have gone a bit further than you. Keir Starmer says the only way out of this mess is to go back to the people and ask them whether they would support no deal if that is what is on the table, or remain. Emily Thornberry, the shadow foreign secretary, says any deal that comes out of the government should be put to a confirmatory referendum. Any deal. Remain should be on the ballot paper, and Labour should campaign for Remain. Even Diane Abbott, who's been one of Jeremy Corbyn's most loyal supporters on this issue, is now beginning to question the policy.
And that's perfectly legitimate for them to express that view.
But they've won, haven't they? They've won in the shadow cabinet.
Well, we'll wait to see what Jeremy Corbyn is doing. And that's why Jeremy Corbyn is such a strong leader. Well, he's not being bullied into any position by anybody. What he's doing, Andrew, is he's consulting. He's consulting with the trade unions. He's consulting with members. He's consulting with the NEC. And then we'll have a proper debate. There's no panic at the moment.
He too has moved. Again, he said very recently it is now right to demand that any deal is put to a public vote.
I think that's perfectly understandable in the current situations, and I'm comfortable with that. The problem is, how do you get there? Which is why, to repeat, a general election and then a deal that's negotiated by a Labour government should go back for a confirmatory vote.
Now, you yourself voted Remain in the first referendum, I think. If there was another referendum with no deal, or remain on the ballot paper? How would you vote?
I suspect, obviously, it will be my union's executive who will decide this. But if we were faced with a situation of either no deal or remain, I suspect we would campaign for remain.
You would?
Yeah, no deal is so dangerous to our economy that it would need to be opposed.
What about some kind of deal, a bit like Theresa May's deal, or remain? Which way would you vote then?
Well, the Theresa May deal, if it encompassed a customs union, customs arrangements, which are so important in terms of investment for our nation, then that is the type of deal that I'd be comfortable to see go through.
There was a faintly surreal moment when you went in to negotiate, to talk directly with Theresa May. Would you do the same with a Boris Johnson or a Jeremy Hunt government?
Of course. I mean, the reality is I'm the leader of a union, an important union, and whenever a Prime Minister requests a meeting, of course I would.
You'd like a deal, but that does not represent what your members say, because 65% of your members would like to remain. 71% of members of trade unionists would like to remain. There is a big Remain constituency there.
Andrew, you're talking about this opinion poll that was done, commissioned by the public vote people.
But by a reputable company, done properly.
But it is absolute nonsense. I'm surprised you're giving it such credence. Apparently,
why is it nonsense?
Apparently 355 Unite members who self-identified as Unite members, I don't know that they are, gave a response. Here's the truth. My union constantly talks to 20,000 Unite members across our sectors. I have 300. Andrew, this is important. I have 300.
Okay, let me ask you.
300 constitutional committees, none of whom are seeking a second referendum. I had 100 conveners from all our top manufacturing companies who met in March, none of whom are seeking a second referendum. I don't need you, Gov, or the public vote people to tell me how my members are thinking.
Okay, when did your union decide to be pro-Brexit?
Pro-Brexit? Well,
that is effectively your position.
Yeah, we took a position after the 2016. Remember?
Okay, who's we? How did this happen?
Our policy conference that brings together representatives of over 1,000 people from every sector of our economy. Nobody campaigned more or put more money into the Remain referendum than Unite. But, and this is an inconvenient truth to some people, we lost, and having lost, you have to accept a democratic result and try to negotiate the best deal possible. That's what trade unions do.
But we are now in the situation, a different situation, where the country is facing no deal as a potential outcome. And the Treasury analysis of this is very interesting in terms of the lost growth and therefore the lost jobs of your members that result. And they say, for instance, in chemicals and pharmaceuticals, there'll be a more than 20%
It would be a disaster.
Car industry, 20%,
you don't need
and
to
so
quote
on,
that to
and
me.
so on, and so on.
We are absolutely fundamentally opposed to a no deal. Hence, you asked me a question before about no deal or Remain. We would campaign for Remain. But that's not necessarily going to happen. We'll have to wait to see. But the real issue at the moment is a general election. That's the issue that should be argued for by MPs and by our members right throughout our nation.
Meanwhile, we're in the midst of a Tory leadership campaign, going into when Parliament reassembles. There will be a new Conservative Prime Minister, as you've suggested, and both of these candidates are saying that if they can't get the deal they want, they'll go for no deal. And that's not very far away. Is it not now time for Unite and for the Labour Party to be campaigning openly to Remain?
No, it isn't. We have to wait to see what will unfold. And all this pressure and the attacks on Jeremy Corbyn, the Times newspaper yesterday.
I'm going to come on to that, but just before we do.
No, the reality.
Let me come on to. I will come on to that.
There is no panic. There is no panic to do anything. We've got a policy conference coming up in less than 12 weeks. Let Jeremy Corbyn consult. My message to Labour MPs and to our Labour members is Jeremy's done okay so far. So let's trust him to consult and see what emerges.
The Shadow Chancellor, John McDonnell, has said this morning, we need to move now. Maybe there needs to be a little bit of urgency, if not panic, at least urgency about this.
Well, what an incredible Shadow Chancellor he is. He'll make a brilliant Chancellor. He'll make a brilliant Chancellor. But I don't believe that there's a panic. And my message to everybody is stop panicking. Stop putting pressure on Jeremy Corbyn. He's demonstrating real leadership by seeking a consensus view across our party.
But your position is losing inside the Shadow Cabinet, visibly. If Jeremy Corbyn goes with that and changes the position to a referendum now and to campaign for a referendum in which Labour backs Remain now, what do you do?
Andrew, you're wrong. The position of the shadow cabinet, 100%, is they want a general election. That's my position. Now, we'll have to wait to see.
We can all want lots of things, but we may not get them in life.
We may not, but you've got to wait to see, because anything can happen. And the reality is, that's why I'm saying, calm down. Calm down. There's no panic.
Okay.
Let's discuss the situation.
What happens in the House of Commons if we appear to be heading towards no deal? How do you stop no deal? I mean, Unite's got Labour members.
I think there are enough Conservative MPs who will block a no deal. And I think Labour and the rest of the parties in Parliament will stop a no deal. And I hope they do.
Except that, I don't know if you saw it, but Caroline Flint was on this programme last week, and she was saying that she had a block of about 20-odd Labour MPs who would vote with the government to get a deal rather than let a deal.
To get a deal, not to get a no deal.
No, but would you back them in those circumstances? Because this is how a future Prime Minister might get a deal through.
My understanding is there's as many as 40, even 60 Labour MPs who are part of Respect the Result group. And that's why a second referendum is difficult to see emerging. But Caroline and all of those individuals I know would be opposed to a no deal. They know that is economic disaster.
Except that if she was forced to choose between no Brexit and no deal, she said she'd choose no deal.
Oh, I'd have to do. Okay, that's an opinion. That's not a view I share. The situation of no deal is catastrophic for our economy, and I'm interested in protecting jobs and investment, in particular in the manufacturing sector.
Let's move on.